Man, we're so excited that you are here. We know it's Monday and it could be a little bit drowsy, start to your week trying to figure it out. But man, we're so excited that you decided to join us. We just launched this amazing creator feed. Basically, every creator that uploads to their portfolio, you can see everything that they do, everything that they're creating. And so it's just a way to be engaged, a way to see what other creators are creating as we upload to our portfolios and as we build a platform out. So we're so excited that we just launched that literally on Friday. So super excited. Without further ado, I want to intro my friend. She is in here. I see that she's in here. Just a little background on Eryn from my personal. I want to let her do her own intro, but Eryn is one of my best friends. She's one of the she's a person who gave me an opportunity and gave me an office space when I was just a young creator. She had an office space in Atlanta, and she had a brand and some other stuff, and I'll let her kind of talk about that. But I'm just so in depth to her, and I just appreciate her so much as a friend and as a person because she gave me an opportunity. And yeah, I'm super excited to have her. So I want to intro one of my best friends, Eryn Eddy. Are you here?
Come on. Hey, Joe. That was the best intro ever.
I was like, what do I tell people about my best friend? She's amazing. She listens to me ramble all the time about random stuff. But yeah, we're so excited that you're here. How are you doing today?
Oh man, I'm so honored to be here. It's just so cool that we can do these things. I just think as creatives, we stick together, and I think that's what you and I've done. We've had our ups and downs and highs and lows of our career and our journey, and I'm excited. I love seeing this room fill up. I feel like I'm in like an actual. I like how you kept saying I'm in a virtual building. I feel that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's amazing to have some type of community during this time because I feel like it's hard to be around people more or less creators who are like-minded, who are finding,
Mm.
their, rhythm of creating art and creating and out of who they are. And so it's super exciting that we can come together. We just launched this Discord channel. And we're so excited to just give people an opportunity to connect. And so we're glad to have you.
This is so cool. This is so
Yo,
cool.
so I want to get started a little bit. I know you, but I want you to kind of, just if you could just tell me like who is Eryn Eddy? Yeah, who is Eryn Eddy and what are you about?
Man. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I live in Atlanta, a little south of the airport of Atlanta, Georgia. So I grew up in North Georgia, a country girl at heart, but my parents are both from the Midwest. So I don't have your typical Southern Belle story that a lot of people in the South have when they've grown up here.
Oh, we might have lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
There we go. I don't know what happened. It just randomly went away.
No worries, no worries. You want to start back over?
Yeah, let me just start back over. I'll just kind of
Amazing.
intro who I am again. All right. Hey
Amazing.
guys. Hey. Sorry, y'all saw you. Sorry about that. Um, Eryn Eddy. I am from Georgia. I grew up in North Georgia. My parents are from the Midwest, manufactured furniture for a little over 30 years. I come from a line of entrepreneurs. My grandma manufactured furniture, all Santa Fe, New Mexico inspired, primitive pieces. And yeah, and so I grew up with entrepreneurs. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't go to college, school, kind of asking lots of questions. What do I like to do? And I learned what I love to do is tell story in different mediums, whether it's photography, video. And I'm not a videographer and I'm not a photographer, but I enjoy working with them. Joe, that's why you and I hit it off.
Yeah, I love that. Man, what were you saying?
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I think that's amazing. I I love like your story in general, and I want to talk a little bit about so you're just so people know the context. I want to talk about So Worth Loving the brand and then get into So Worth Loving the book.
Mm,
You as a writer. And I know So We're Loving the brand. The reason we want to talk about it is because Collective is a platform for creators who are, we're trying to give resources and help and really just solidify ourselves to be a place where creators can come. And so I want them to understand like you built a brand and then go into the book a little bit. And we could talk about that after that, but I just kind of want to talk about So Worth Loving the brand and kind of your journey with that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, so I like to say I accidentally started a clothing company. I think like any of us, like you have a passion project and you love it so much, you're just trying to figure out how you can only do that. And
Hmm.
I was spray painting T-shirts. I was putting them. I put my home address on my blog, on my Tumblr blog, and I said, mail me your personal shirt, and I'm going to spray paint the message that you're so worth loving, and I'll mail it back to you for free. And I did that for about 8 months, and then as I was doing that, I realized, man, how can I make this sustainable? Like, I love this because I started receiving stories of people struggling with believing they're worthy of love, whether it
Yeah.
was anxiety, depression, low self esteem, breakup, struggle with school, whatever it may be. Maybe it was the history that you came from with your
Hmm.
family. Maybe it was a relative that said something over you and they wanted to carry this message and remind other people. And so I decided to screen print a couple shirts and sell it on my Shopify store that I set up really quick with a simple template. And
Wow.
then 10 years later, we're a lifestyle brand and we bridge the gap between not talking about the struggles of self-worth and talking about it. And because of that, because of the 10-year journey of just being persistent, that offered me or that gave me an opportunity to write a book and write my own story and my own wrestlings with feeling unworthy of love and feeling unworthy of my dreams and my passions and my purpose.
Man, I think that's beautiful, Aaron, because I think as creators and just as people in general, like we, when you were creating So We're Loving, you probably didn't think about spray painting T-shirts. Well, first of all, you were singing and doing music. We don't, but
No,
without
yeah.
the well,
Oh,
you
man.
were in art and exploring different mediums and different things, and then you go into making a brand, and it's somewhat successful. You find a little bit of success, then it grows, and then you start finding this not identity, but you start finding like what you're actually good at and what people want to hear from you, and then you go into creating this book and getting a offer to create a book, and so I know we titled this class like writing and publishing a book and dealing with imposter syndrome. And I think that's just like the perfect example of like us in general as friends and like what we talk about. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it. So I'd imagine, and this is just me, off the top of the head, that writing a book isn't easy. So I know that you probably wrestled a lot with even if you should, and we've talked about it, on your journey, like if it was worth a story that should be read or even written.
Mm,
How did you deal with those things as you're writing a book? You're not an
mhm.
author. You just at the time, like you're just kind of just being like, oh well, people like this brand, they resonate with the story. What was the journey with that like for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I think it's if I look back on my past and just like the evolution of where I am now, it's following your curiosity. I
Mm.
Because before I started So Worth Loving, I was doing other things. Like I started a cupcake company called Cupcakes for a Cause where I was
What?
baking
I
cup and
didn't
got
know that. That's
I know.
amazing.
And then I did music and then I did so I explored so many different things and then some things stuck and some things were just a fun little spurt of creativity. And so for the book, I didn't set out to start the book. I had some stuff personal stuff I was going through. I was going through a divorce and
Wow.
I was, burned out with my business and I was just exhausted and I had a lot of feelings, but I didn't really know where to place them because I felt almost too numb. And I thought maybe my therapist was like, you should just start
Mhm.
journaling. So I just started journaling and I recognized how life giving that was for me. So I started to pursue and be curious about that passion of writing. And I just would
Wow.
challenge myself to write 500 to 1,000 words, 500 words to 1,000 words a day. I'm just, and that's when I learned, wow, I really, I really like doing this. And I like I'm not doing it for anybody. No one's seeing these words. I'm just doing it for me because it's life-giving for me. It's healing for me, which is what art does. It's life-giving and it's healing. And so I decided at the time, I think I wrote about 30,000 words. And I mean, Joe, no one should see these words. Some of them
Yeah.
are in the book, but some of them, they weren't they
Yeah.
weren't like these like eloquent, wonderful, like they were like run-on sentences and a lot of ellipses.
Yeah.
And
Which would be me if I wrote a book.
my whole book in the beginning was like a bunch of ellipses. It's like one
Wow.
continual thought. But what I learned in doing that was like, I was like, you know what? This, what if I like wrote a book?
Mm.
So then I decided, well, I don't even know if I can make that promise,
Yeah.
right? Because I'd have to keep it. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep the promise of writing 50,000 words. I mean, if the pressure's on me to do it, if someone's paying me to
It's
do it,
different than just doing it as a hobby.
right? Yeah, exactly. It's like it's way more fun to create by yourself where no one's watching and there's no
Yeah.
pressure. Your art, I think, looks a lot different than if somebody's wanting you to do it a certain way. And so I knew that if I was, especially the topic on self-worth, like I was like, I don't want that to be manipulated by the pressures around me. I don't want to manipulate it. If I'm gonna write, I'm doing it.
Mm.
Do it quietly. So I decided to put together a book proposal for just me. So I could figure out if I wanted to articulate what I was creating to somebody, could I? It was like I was like creating this proposal that no one was going to see.
Yeah, like a
Like I ne-
diary, like yeah.
yeah, it was like I was creating this like document, like this proposal, this book proposal that maybe an agent would see, but I
Yeah.
wasn't going to show anybody. I just wanted to do it for me. Like I wanted to see what my bottom line of this book was and what are the chapters if I wanted to do it and like purely with no pressure, no seeing actually do this. And then a friend of mine, I was just sharing with her, hey, like I think I've written, half of a book. Sorry, can you hear me? I think my
Yeah, yeah,
microphone.
we can hear you.
Um, I was like, I think I just wrote half a book, and she said, well, you should connect with this agent that somebody did. Him and we ended up talking for 2 hours, and I felt creative in talking to him, and I was like, okay, maybe I could actually write a book.
Mm.
That's kind of how it started. Was it following my
I
curiosity?
think that's so amazing, in a lot of areas, and I think one that I think resonates with me in your story is the art of, like, this constant progression. So it's like you start cupcakes, you're singing, and as it like, then you write you just spray paint on t-shirts, then it becomes a brand. Then you start going to therapy and kind of wrestling with things, and then it becomes a book. And
Yeah.
so I think there's something so beautiful about that because as artists and as creators, like we don't really, at least for me, we don't really live in the moment. We're
Mhm.
constantly, for me personally, I'm constantly thinking of the next thing that I'm going to do, the next project, or I'm like in it editing, shooting. I'm just all about what's going to happen next. And I don't really resonate and kind of process those progressional moments, you know?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so I think seeing that and uncovering that in your journey is just so crucial. And I think for creators, I think it's a testament to say, man, those little progressions and the things of almost unintentional successes and unintentional habits that we start to create out of, let's say, therapy or just experimenting are these value you ultimately into your next
Yeah.
endeavor as a creator.
Oh, that's so true. And I mean, I was listening to well, somebody I was not listening. I was on a podcast interview the other day, and they said something that I really appreciated, and it was, little things. It's the little choices that lead to the big decisions, the
Mm.
big things that we see. That's all is to big decision. And it's like all the little things that I was doing led me to the big decision to sign a publishing
Wow.
deal. But all the little things no one saw. And they said something, and I appreciated it so much because it's true. Like people see, they see So Worth Loving, they see like the impact we're making, or they see, we've shipped to 50 states and 30 countries. They see the big
Yeah.
stuff. But what this person said on this podcast interview, they said, yeah, but how it got started was you by yourself learning how to print a label to put on a package from your desktop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really started like it's the little things. Like So We're Loving started trying, like, do I print a label, a 8 by 11 sheet of paper, the tear versions, and then it's like the slow little choices, the slow
Yeah.
little things lead to the big things, but we forget that those little mundane things are the things that lead us to really cool opportunities as creatives. And sometimes we can just get, bogged down, or like, man, I just am so tired, or I'm so burnt out, or I'm just over it. But the little things are the things that lead us to the big
Oh,
things.
that's amazing. There's just this progression, because even with that, it's like you figure out to do a logo, then you have to figure out how to ship, then you got to figure out how to make consistent product, then you got to wrestle with owning a business. And where I was in your office, you gave me an office space, and you had a staff, and you were trying to lead them, and then it's just this progression as a creator, and I think it's amazing. But sometimes I think, and what I really want to talk about in this call is, with every step, sometimes I feel like as a creator, we may not feel qualified. So we
Mhm.
talk about this thing about imposter syndrome. And I know we talked about it all the time when you were writing your book. Um, just wanted to hear from you on that. But like, I think in my story personally, I can be in rooms with individuals, with artists, and with big brands and things, and sometimes feel like, should I be here? And I think it's such a wrestle as a creator. But what is what is kind of your struggle
Mhm.
with that in writing a book, and even maybe owning a brand, or in your own personal world, but also in your professional?
Yeah. Yeah, imposter syndrome, I feel like I still struggle with it, and I think it comes
Mm,
in waves of different times. I think we all do as creatives, because I think, imposter syndrome really comes from it comes from so many different angles, but what I've learned about me and feeling like an imposter in a space that I don't feel like I belong is this perfectionism that I want to apply towards me. Like, I need to be perfect in this area in order to exist in this area.
mm,
I need to be a perfect writer in order to be a writer. I need to be a perfect business leader in order to be a business leader. It comes from this like desire for perfectionism, and two, for me, shame. Like I look at my past and I'm like, man, like, I made all these mistakes. I've done all these things that, just because that was pertaining specifically to my story and me writing about self-worth. And man, I made so many choices out of a space of insecurity and lack of self-worth,
mhm.
but I was the perfect person to write on it because it's a struggle
Yeah.
of mine. But I think that's the thing, that when we pursue something, and writing specifically, we can feel like we have to be perfect at it in order for us to do
Mm,
it. And if we aren't perfect at it, we feel like a fraud. We feel like a phony. We feel like, well, if people find out that I'm really not that good, then they will see me as, um,
a
yeah, they'll see
fake.
me as, hey, yeah, lucky. And I don't deserve to be in this arena of this, whatever it is that you're creating or writing. That is imposter syndrome, I feel like, is a constant fight still for me, because I write about self-worth, but it's because it's a thorn in my side. It's the thing that I'm the most passionate about. It's the thing that I struggle the most with. Uh,
Oof. Yeah. No, I think,
right?
yeah. 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 I think that's I think Trevor, last week, a friend of mine that we had on here last week, and we were talking about finding your voice. And I think for me as a creator, the number one thing that I run from is the thing that resonates with me the most,
Mm,
and it's the thing that I like, my ethnicity and being Latino in this space, and how people want to hear my voice, and if it's needed. And, as a creator, it's so hard to be vulnerable in those spaces.
yeah. Ugh. Yeah, it is. And I mean, what are some ways that you've learned of breaking the imposter uh, thoughts? Is
I
there things that you've done to stop
Well,
that?
one, I would say one is talking to you when I call you. It's it's funny to talk with it's funny when when you communicate and find good community and friends who wrestle with the same things that you're wrestling with. And that's
Mm,
one thing that I found with you is that I can call you and say, "Yo, I'm struggling with creating or if I should do it." And there's always a voice and probably because your brand is so worth loving and your whole that is who you are, it's just easier to wrestle with those things with you.
yeah.
Um, and I think it's important to have people around you that can do the same thing. And I do that to you, but I probably do that to 5 other people that are really, close and understand, you know. What a- what about you? What are some things that you do actively? Maybe 2 things
Mm,
um as you were writing the book, as you kind of go out through your normal day. Because I think a lot of times we try to separate the artist from the person. And I
mm.
think a lot of those coincide and a lot of those are we are people and we should create from who we are. So in the book, what are some ways that you um push through when you were struggling or feeling like you shouldn't do it? I know we've had multiple conversations about it, just the process of that.
Yes, I've had to I think sometimes when you wrestle with imposter syndrome, sometimes you don't tell people that you're
Mm,
struggling with your thoughts of feeling like an imposter or feeling like a fraud because you start to believe that you are one. And so for me, it's breaking the silence of those thoughts and bringing community and like-minded people that are also on a pursuit of creating or writing or designing. I talk to them to disrupt the thought, break the silence. And then I have to separate how I feel. I have to
mm,
separate how I feel from what is true. And I do that by journaling. So I'll like journal my thoughts out because sometimes, and that's another way of breaking the silence, because sometimes we don't even realize how belittling our thoughts are towards ourselves
yeah,
until we actually see it physically written down. Because it's easy for it to be quiet and just kind of come in and out of our head. But for me to face it full on, I had to start writing it down. And I'm
yeah,
like, "Man, I really think that about myself?" Like, and I unpack it, and I'm just like, "Okay, so I feel this way because of X. I feel this way because of X and X because of Y and Z." And then I just like journal, journal, journal all in. I asked the question like, "Well, why wouldn't you be worthy or deserving of
mm,
this?" And and then I answer that question, and then, I develop just like a almost a empathetic and healthy response to me versus a, response that's fueled by a lie.
yeah.
I have to differentiate the truth and the
Wow.
lie because I think lies feel like truth sometimes.
Mm.
So
And
I have to do that. I have to
and sometimes I feel like those lies we believe or this like false narrative we've created in our mind,
yes,
Um, I think one thing I love about what I've seen too in this whole process, was the discipline that it took for you as well. Like,
pure thoughts of whatever was coming to my mind, and I decide so journaling in the mornings were huge for me in writing.
mm,
Journaling my thoughts in the morning where no one was going to see them prepared me for creating something that I knew was gonna serve somebody else later in the day when I was writing for my book. So I
wow,
had to practice just the quietness in the mornings with just me. And then things that I did later, I knew were gonna serve other people.
wow,
So that's one thing that I did. So, yeah, so, not consuming alcohol was one, uh disciplined in my quiet times in the morning, challenging myself to write a certain amount of words a day, and then also like I took a break from reading. I started finding myself. I love to read, so I found myself reading other people's books, and then my voice started evolving into their tone. So I
mm,
didn't even know what my voice was sometimes because I really loved this author and I loved the way she crafted her sentences and I was like, "You know what? I can't read consistent while I'm in the thick of writing, I just can't read." So I had to
yeah,
I had to do that. I had to stop
You know, y
that.
no, I hear you. I think, that applies to any kind of creator, whether you're a writer. For me, when you're saying that, I realize, like, the disciplines that I kinda had to start as a creator, as a photographer. When I was really getting into it, I made a commitment for almost about a year that it was about 6 months that I would just shoot every single day, and I just shot random stuff. I would shoot buildings, I would just find friends and shoot friends, and then I just, like, consistently made it a habit. And I think
Mm,
those healthy habits, whether it's whatever, like, whether it's specifically applying to, journaling, maybe it's cutting out things that are distractions in your life and just kind of focusing, are crucial to really take the next step and to get a body of work of like, create this habit. It's like I go to the gym. You go to the gym. I don't, but I'm
mhm.
trying to. But you go to the gym every day because you want to see progress.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's super crucial. But I think there's something to be said about that a consistent habit and a clear mind um, can launch you into something else.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. That's something that I loved and just appreciated watching shared an office space.
You,
You
you cut out a little bit.
would I don't know if you can
I,
hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Maybe just start.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, one thing that you did that I really appreciated, Joe, about just kind of being an observer of you creating when we shared an office space, you you would just have these creative ideas and just do them. Like, and sometimes you weren't getting paid. It was just like a complete outlet for you.
Mm,
And you just did it with nobody watching, just enjoying creating. And I think to develop to fight against your space or creating where everybody sees it. How do you really truly develop a confidence where it's not on the applause of other people, but it's within your own skill set?
yeah.
It's the best way to when helps you fight against love saying, "Well, who are you to think that you can do this?" Or fraud or you're fake or
Idea. And then it works and you see it through in fruition and you kind of like work and it actually becomes a real thing, a tangible thing. And I think those little things help establish you and help you gain the confidence to battle imposter syndrome. You know?
Mm,
It's like,
mhm.
yeah, like even in office with you, like I never worked with a clothing brand, but as we would wrestle and just talk through different ideas, like you'd be like, "Oh, that's cool. Like that sounds good." And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. That sounds good." And we would just kind of like build. And I do that with other photographers, creators, and it's like you start to develop your own creative voice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I do think you develop this like confidence within creating when you collaborate with another person too. Like just
Yeah.
brainstorming ideas. Just brainstorming ideas with you has helped me to go, "Oh, what I'm doing is okay." Like but develop it's like reaffirming where I don't need somebody externally to affirm what I'm doing like on when you have a close friendship and community when you're creating, that does
Vulnerability.
help develop the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you just
Yeah.
need that community to say, "Yo, you're the shit. You got it. Like, you good." Like, and I think that's a lot of times what our convos sometimes are. It's like, "Yo, stop
It
overthinking.
is.
Just do it." Like, even with
You've done that to me
yeah,
before.
and you do that to me too, because 'cause I'm like, as a creator, I'm like, "Yo, like, this is this good?" And my wife can just be like, "Yo, this is great," and I won't believe her. I'll send it to someone else. I'll just keep sending it to people to affirm me. But sometimes people have to like sometimes the people that I really care about, really when they sit me down, they're like, "Yo, this is good. Keep doing it." Or, "Yo, you need to pivot and think bigger or think different." And those things are crucial, to battle those imposter syndrome things because you get comments. I'm sure, maybe you're starting to get book reviews and different things that you're like, "Oh, like, is this good? Was it worth it? Like,
Mm.
am I gonna make money or are they gonna give me another book, to do, you know? And we talk you're on like book 3 ideas, so it's like I can only imagine it's like, yo, just making one and trying to make more, it's like it might be a hard thing to progress, but also mentally process.
Mhm. Oh yeah. That's such a great point, and that's very true because I have wrestled with that. I really wrestled early on in writing with imposter syndrome because I knew that I was going to block myself from being able to create because of my thought life.
Mm,
If I'm going to continue to believe all of these things that I'm a fraud, I'm fake, and people aren't going to believe me, or I don't have a space because I don't have a place in this space of self-worth and writing a book. If I started saying that stuff, I was going to start believing it, and then my actions were going to sabotage the very thing that I wanted to do, the things that I
yeah,
desired to create. And so I had to wrestle with that in the beginning because I knew book reviews were going to come. I knew people were going to read my book and disagree, not like it, tear it apart, do whatever. And I wanted to make sure that I went ahead and dealt with all my thoughts of tearing myself apart so that I would be strong enough for somebody that's going to tear it apart also.
yeah. You know what? It's so funny. This the process, this like circle of a creative. It's like processing everything that just happened. Being was done and be vulnerable. Now I gotta be vulnerable and wait whether it's
Oh.
good or not. It's like this, like when I create a video, it's like, all right, let me pitch the idea. All right, cool. Now I gotta shoot it. Okay, cool. Now I gotta wait for people to respond to it and if it was good. And it's like, oh, it's this internal like circle of am I good enough? Okay, that made me like this is the progression. It's like, okay, I was good enough for the treatment. I'm good enough to shoot it. Now I'm good enough for people to watch it. And then it's like, but am I good enough at all? It's like this,
Yes,
like
so true.
this it always keeps going and it's this like I don't know. You know what I'm talking about,
No,
but
you're right. Well, that's something that my therapist taught me. It's like your thoughts become your beliefs and your beliefs become your actions. So what is your thought life? Because your thought life is going to inevitably be the thing that you believe or don't believe, and then your actions are going to model that. And I it's like a triangle of my thoughts, my beliefs, my actions. So sometimes I'd be like, I remember one day I wrote 10,000 words in my Microsoft Word because my publisher that's the way they use Microsoft Word. I didn't connect a Microsoft Word to the cloud. And so I lost 10,000 words that day that I wrote.
oh wow.
And I just remember being like, it's because I was so not this good, all that spiral that you go down as a creative. You're
Yeah.
right. When it freezes, if your computer freezes or whatever happens, it's like, oh, it shuts down and you lose everything. You're like, see, I'm supposed to do this.
This is what
Like,
this is why I shouldn't have done this. That's funny.
exactly.
Man, I appreciate you, man. First of all, just thank you so much, Aaron, for this time. I know we talk often, but I'm so grateful for your voice, for the opportunity that you've given me, just as a friend, even in business, and just super grateful for you. I want to leave kind of people with. We do have a lot of writers in this in
Mhm.
collective, and I want to just kind of, if you were just going to be like, here's the top five thing, top, well, let's say top three things if you want to be a writer, here are the top three things that I would do or and I wouldn't do.
Mm, okay.
I think one of them, could be you need to if you want to be a writer, you should write 500 words a day. I
Mhm.
think maybe that, but maybe you have different. But I just want to ask you, what are the top three things you should do? Top thing three things you shouldn't do.
Yeah. I would encourage anybody that's wanting to write or starting to, it's the discipline, creating a discipline of just writing when nobody's listening, no one's looking. So do that every day. Give yourself a goal. Say, I'm going to write this amount of words a day. Um, it could that you're writing on, like that's what I would do. So like I wrote on grief because I talk a lot about grieving my past and grieving my choices. So challenge yourself on the topic that you want, your book or whatever type of script that you're creating, whatever type of manuscript you're creating. Discipline,
Mm,
right? And then I would also encourage the second thing I would say is I would encourage you to write about your personal feelings of just life in general in the mornings because your morning hours of or your morning time of writing. There's a book called Artist's Way that talks a lot about that. They call them your morning pages. That's the thing that unlocks you to be able to write more on the topic.
Mm,
So write in the morning, like journal your thoughts, your feelings. What are you thinking about? What are you mad about? What are you angry about that you're observing in the world? What are the things that you're excited about that you find joy in? Like write those things in the morning. So journal, and then set a goal for how many words you actually want to write on the topic you're writing on.
mm,
And then I would encourage you to only involve a very tiny, tiny group of people that know about you writing. I
wow.
wouldn't tell many people that you're writing, because they will start to shape or speak in or feel like they have an opinion. Maybe they shouldn't. I love what Sarah Blakely talks about. She says that when she has an idea and she sets out to start something, she doesn't tell anybody about it for the year that she's creating it. I think
Wow.
that's so smart. It's so
That's
smart.
dope.
She's like, "Because I still don't even know. I need to
Yeah.
explore it for myself before I let other people try to explore it and shape it." So, bring in a small group of people, tiny group of people that can speak into you when you have bad days when you're writing and you doubt yourself, and then people that can just encourage you on the path, um, to writing more. So those would
Yo,
be 3
I
things
would just say,
that I would.
that's amazing. Those are great. I just wanted to give people something like very tangible and clear. And I know you gave a bunch of gems in this whole conversation. Uh, what would you say would be one thing that you shouldn't do if you're trying to write, if you're trying to be a writer, if you're trying to write a book? What was one thing that you would be like, no, don't do this?
Mm. I'll share what I gave myself permission to do. So it might not work for you depending on how you create, but don't create an outline. Like don't outline your chapters. Don't decide like this is exactly what the chapters are going to be. I I was told that that's what I should do, is to create a whole like table of
Mm,
contents before I
yeah,
started writing. And I did that, and I felt so confined because I was like, "Well, I can't write anymore for chapter 2 because chapter 2 is supposed to be this." So I started limiting myself. The moment you start creating an outline and a structure in the very beginning, you start limiting where your mind wants to take it.
I feel like we've had a lot of writers in collective, and this just helps us in general. I feel like just kind of understand that, especially since you have this tangible product and tangible work that you've disciplined yourself and created. And so I just think it's beautiful. Um,
Mm.
if you have a second, I would love to open it up to any questions if anybody has any, if that's cool. Maybe one or two.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. I know
It's
everyone's
so fun.
muted, so don't feel like you have to say anything, but, I know I've been talking a lot to Aaron, but if anyone has any questions, would love to open it up. Just feel free to unmute yourself, um, and ask away.
This has been so fun to see people come in and out.
I think we had one. Yeah, it's been fun. I love that people are kinda actively listening. People say that it feels like a podcast, and it's super dope to just be able to bring this to with no cost, just, "Hey, let's grow together."
It's so
So
cool.
let's
It's so
see.
cool.
Anybody else? Anybody have a question?
I have a question.
Amazing. Hi, Danny.
Hi. So for taking the time to speak with us. I'm also a writer, so I'm currently working on something, and I was just very curious about what your process is for creating,
Mm.
and you like when do you do characters before the plot? Have the character, you create the plot, or you put the plot into the characters? Kind of like how do you come up with like the characters that resonate very well with your audience and stuff?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I write nonfiction. However, what I've learned with I did Malcolm Gladwell's. Um, he talks a lot about like character forming, and one thing that I really appreciated that he says shares is that you allow the character to evolve in the storyline. So you don't you he said, let them make the choices that they want to make as you write. And I thought that was really cool of how the characters take shape. Um, but for me specifically, I've never written on character formation before. I'm not able to speak into that as much as just observing what Malcolm's done. So maybe it's depending on if you feel like you're having a writer's block on a person. I think it kind of goes back to like I don't know if this is applicable or not, but with not creating a table of contents, I think it's in the same frame of yeah, let the character evolve into who they need to become as your writings evolve. I think you might be surprised by the character. I have one of my friends that she was writing a fiction book, and she was like, it's just so fun to see how these characters are making these choices. Like that's how she would talk about characters in her book, because she's like, I had no idea that they had that in them to choose these things that they chose. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
That was very helpful. Thank you so much.
That was amazing. That was a great answer. Let's take one more question before we let Eryn go. Feel free to unmute and just interrupt me.
Yeah, and if y'all hear a snoring sound, that's my little French bulldog just snoring away right beside me.
Good old Frenchie.
Good old Frenchies.
Amazing. Well, man, we'll wrap it up. We'll have this session online on YouTube, so you can kind of recap. And then if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the Just for Fun, or share your work and out. Like, just go ahead and put it in the networking or Just for Fun, and I can ask Eryn, and we can get back to you. But we definitely just want to be a resource to you and be helpful as much as we can in our own experiences. Dealing with imposter syndrome and creating can be hard, but man, when you remain vulnerable, it's just beauty. So I've seen that in you, Eryn, and I'm just grateful that you've done that and been able to show that.
Oh, thank you, Joe. I'm grateful for friends like you that speak truth to fight imposter syndrome. We have to do that all for each other together.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I want to plug your socials, where they can find you, also where we can get your book, please.
Yeah. You can find me. I'm just at Eryn Eddy, ErynEddy on Instagram. My company is So Worth Loving. So it's spelled just as it sounds, SO Worth Loving. And then you can find my book at soworthloving.com/book or eryneddy.com/book.
Amazing. Actually, you can see me as well, you know.
Y'all, he
I get a
is.
little shout out, so you know it's my first book I'm in. So we'll see how the character evolves. Yo, Eryn, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to see what you create and what you continue to do.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Thanks for having me, Joe. Thanks for everybody hanging out. This was so fun.
All right, y'all. Man, we hope you have a great day. Thank you, Eryn, for joining us. Collective, we're gonna put this session in tomorrow, and then we'll have our session from Friday. We got Evan Harvey on Friday doing his session. We're super excited about that. Make sure you join us in the afternoon. We love y'all. We're grateful for y'all. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good day.